everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin, and today I decided to jump on a trend that I've been seeing here on YouTube as well as on other social media. I think I've seen it on TikTok a couple times, but I am going to be trying to use AI to write a crochet pattern. So if you haven't seen this trend before, there's a couple of AI softwares that are kind of running around the internet that will generate text based on what prompts you put in. So some people use it to start funny conversations with the AI to see what it thinks of certain topics. Some people use it to help draft writing pieces, but I wanted to see if it can successfully write a crochet pattern. Now, since I've seen other users do this before, I kind of have a way to predict what the success rate is going to be of this AI software. So I kind of know what to expect going into it, so I figured I would pick an item that I haven't seen before used in this type of a video and ask the AI to make a crochet mushroom pattern. I figure that that's a simple enough shape that it should be able to do it, but I've also seen it go tragically wrong with people making other items, so we'll find out. To get started, I have red and white acrylic yarn that's just from my scrap bins, but otherwise I will be using only the materials that the AI chat tells me to. Another question that I kind of wanted to address about, what is this AI, like kind of stuff. I wouldn't consider this to be actually AI as in artificial intelligence. This is merely a program that uses predictive algorithms to spit back out what it thinks you want. So it's not perfect. It doesn't respond the way an intelligent person would. So I think the term AI for these like algorithm-based chat sites is probably a little bit of a misnomer, and let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me, or if you know more on this subject than I do. But to me, this doesn't seem like an actual source of artificial intelligence. This is like a step above the little paperclip helper in Word that people my age and older had when they were first learning how to use Microsoft Word. Again, it's more of a like predictive reasoning algorithm, but we're gonna jump in and see what it can do to create a crochet pattern for us. Alright, this is voiceover Erin here talking about how I got started with the ChatGPT. I decided to start by asking for a crochet amigurumi mushroom because I was hoping that the term amigurumi would indicate to ChatGPT that I was looking for a three-dimensional object instead of a flat mushroom applique. This is kind of similar to other crochet patterns I've seen, and I was hoping that amigurumi was a recognizable enough term to ChatGPT that it would be able to use that to inform the design. So you can see I just typed in my question at the bottom and then hit the green arrow to generate the pattern. It did take a couple seconds for the pattern to generate, probably because it was kind of going through its little algorithm or whatever to figure out what it needed. But once it kind of got going, the pattern emerged almost instantly. So you can see my original question stays at the top, and then the response comes in at the bottom. I was impressed that it listed materials needed and abbreviations at the beginning, just like a traditional crochet pattern does. It also separated the design into the mushroom cap and the mushroom stem, and then included some assembly directions at the end. You can always pause this video to read the pattern if you're interested in recreating it, but spoiler alert, it did not quite turn out as I wanted it to. There was enough crochet technical terminology included in here that I was very optimistic when I started off. It looked like the increases were going to work out sort of how I expected them to. All of the abbreviations were correct. The materials seemed pretty correct. It did not give me a specific crochet hook size to use. It just said to use one suitable for your yarn. So if you were an absolute beginner trying to use this pattern, that part by itself might cause you to have to restart and check the pattern over again, but because I'm relying on my years of crochet experience, I knew that I needed kind of a smaller hook size in order to make an amigurumi. This is where I started off the pattern. I do have it sped up just so that you can kind of see as much of the process as possible. I started with just the increase rows on the mushroom cap, which followed kind of standard crochet in the round patterns that I've seen before of the way that the increases were formulated. I did notice right away that it created a very flat top and then immediately went down the sides with no increases, which led to more of like a bucket shaped top instead of a more soft rounded mushroom cap top. I also noticed that it didn't decrease again at the end, meaning that this cap is just going to be left open. It did also instruct me to weave in the ends when I finished. Here's how the mushroom cap looks. It's pretty decent. I was a little surprised that it went like from a flat circle to immediately going sharp downwards, if that makes sense. So it kind of gives more of a like bottom of a cylinder shape than like a more curved mushroom cap. And that's something that could be fixed with stuffing, but I'm looking ahead a little bit at the mushroom stem pattern, and it looks like the cap might just sit open with the stem underneath. So we're just gonna dive into the stem section of the pattern. I'm not completely disappointed by this. It did make a mushroom cap shape, but I think that there are better ways to do the increases for this to give it more of a rounded shape to it instead of something kind of blocky looking, but we'll see what happens when we add the stem. Moving on to the stem, it did start with those kind of standard increases to make the flat bottom of the stem, and then moved into rows with no increases to them, just like the cap did. Once I took a look at the stem pattern, this is where I knew immediately things were going to go south because of the number of rows in the stem. The cap had 11 total rows, just for reference, and the stem only had 9. So this is where I kind of figured out that the stem was probably not going to be long enough to create that recognizable mushroom shape. Also, just as a side note, in total, this pattern probably took me about 35 minutes to do start to finish, and that included reading the pattern and getting my materials out and all of that. Even though this pattern did work up pretty quickly, part of the reason for that is that the proportions were very, very off from the stem to the cap. I think if I was going to redo this pattern, I would add extra rows to the stem at the very least in order to make it a usable mushroom pattern. But because I was doing this as an experiment, I followed the directions exactly, other than some assembly directions that I had to change a little bit in order to make an actual finished project. Okay, our mushroom is done. Here's what it looks like. You can't even tell I added the stem unless you look at the bottom. So here's my observations about this. Is this technically a mushroom? Yes. Like, I can tell that it's a mushroom. If I made it in different colors, probably not. I don't think I would necessarily know that this is supposed to be a mushroom if I made it like in all white or in all red or something like that. So, as far as using ChatGPT specifically to design crochet patterns, it did do a very good job at using correct crochet terminology and enough kind of recognizable pattern components that I was kind of optimistic when we started off. So couple things that I had to change in order to actually make a finished piece. For the assembly, it told me to just stuff the mushroom cap, which is not actually possible because it's completely open at the bottom. It did not actually say anything about stuffing the stem. I opted to stuff the stem because I could, but all it said was to stuff the cap and then sew the stem to the center of the mushroom cap and then weave in ends. It does have a note at the end that says feel free to customize the colors or add embellishments, but it did not do any like spot patterns or anything like that. I would also say that if I purchased a pattern and this is what I got, I would be very, very upset about the money that I had wasted on this. So when it comes to using ChatGPT as a designer, I don't think it's a tool that I would use moving forward if I'm trying to design my own patterns, which you guys know I do. They're in my Etsy shop. I could see it maybe being beneficial as a starting point, but if I was trying to actually design a mushroom pattern and this is what I got from ChatGPT, I would have to kind of start over anyway. So I think the amount of trial and error that you would get from starting with ChatGPT and then just editing the design, you might as well just start from scratch on your own. Part of the reason you pay crochet and knit designers for their patterns is you're relying on their years of expertise in creating finished objects. So I don't really think as of right now there's a danger of ChatGPT taking over crochet and knitwear design. It clearly doesn't do a super effective job, and this was just with 2 simple pieces and honestly pretty simple shaping, and it still didn't do it correctly. So moving forward, because I know that there's a lot of fear within the fiber arts community of seeing AI generated patterns taking over the market, when you're buying a pattern, make sure that you're checking the reviews, or in the case of maybe a small creator, maybe even check what their return policy is or things like that. Most small creators, if you reach out to them, they're willing to help you. I know I've answered a couple of questions from my patterns from people who purchased them. I also talk about my patterns very frequently here on YouTube. So make sure you're checking the reviews before you purchase patterns. Otherwise, you might end up with something like this. So as far as the like blanket one-liner, can you design a crochet pattern with ChatGPT? Technically, the answer is yes. Are you going to be happy with it? No. So that's going to conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed this crochet experiment with me. Let me know if you want me to experiment with this more. I also just realized that I've never seen anyone try this with a knitting pattern. So if you'd like to see this as a knitting experiment instead of a crochet one, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think I should try next. It would really help me out if you subscribe to my channel, left a like and a comment. Check out my other videos. I post most Wednesdays and Fridays. And if you want to follow me on other social media or check out my patterns in my Etsy shop, that information is in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.